You know, you see a lot of these guys on YouTube who have kind of the perfect day, and they probably leave out the B-roll that we experienced of just, it was just awful. You know, it's one of those times when you fly out. I think Mike Chudley did a video recently where they went, it was the same time we were in Joshua Tree. They went to San Francisco. And at the beginning of the video, he's like, the day we flew out, it was sunny in London, and it's never sunny. And we got to San Francisco, and it was cloudy and rainy, and it's like, and they were showing it rained and rained and rained, and that's exactly how it is, and I think everybody can relate. I'm sure your experience, your travel, big trip.
The wind out your way is different than the wind here at the same speeds. Like 70-mile-per-hour winds here,
Yeah.
we had those, and I was like, yeah, whatever. 40-mile-per-hour winds out across the flat-ass desert, dude, is a nightmare. Like, the trucks were rocking.
It does not like you out here.
No, dude.
And there's lots of, I mean, and I guess maybe there's more for it to pick up and throw at you.
Yeah, we have more trees to break it a little bit. But out across like 10, man, that was some of the scariest. 10 and 40 were some of the scariest driving moments I've had in my life. When I was on 40 heading towards Albuquerque, and there were two semis that went past me, and both of them tipped up. They like rocked up, and I was beside them when it happened. I just pulled into that rest area and sat there for 13 hours until that wind chilled a bit. I was like,
13 hours?
Yeah, dude.
And that's when you decided to get a hotel, didn't you, in Shamrock?
No, this is the day after Shamrock. There was a dust storm, and I stopped in Shamrock. And then the next day I was driving out, and then there was just this, it wasn't even forecasted. It was just insane wind out of nowhere. And then they're like, oh, high wind warning for the next 12 hours. But like wind normally doesn't bother me, but the straight line winds coming across the desert and hitting those semis, that's when I was like, I need to pull over because I almost died.
It's never really, I mean, even here, it's not so much, sure, it'll make you kind of have issues, but it's more everybody else. You know, like when it gets, I mean, I'm sure you guys get the ice and the snow, and then the people who are just sliding all over the place. But the semis are big because you have to start thinking, like if you're going southbound on 25 to Cheyenne, those semis are in the right lane. The wind's coming from the west to the east. And so you kind of do this thing where you, all right, I'm behind them, and then zip, try to get around. And they also, because they block the wind, you're going, and then it pulls you, and you don't want to, and they're not in the lines either. So it's this weird kind of Frogger game, you know. It makes driving more engaging.
Yeah, I've never paid more attention in my life to driving.
Yes, exactly. You're not sending a text.
No. I mean, I think I honestly did. I think I was texting Ulysses like, why is the West trying to kill me?
I'm actually glad, kind of in light of my more popular reel of, you know, the nice thing of the process is sort of the misery, the messing up, and it is, because you think about it, it's like, what story is there to tell? Oh, the sun was shining, beautiful, took a lot of great pictures. Like, we don't give a shit.
There's no story.
Wonderful. I'm glad it was great. We love each other's misery because we suffer that. And so hearing somebody else go through it is much easier than it is to relate to, yeah, good times ahead, you know?
Yeah, everybody, oh, great, you had fun on your trip, go fuck yourself. Like, it's just like...
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny that way.
Yeah, man, and the wildfires. I was not aware of the plague of wildfires that occur. We always hear about Californian wildfires in Michigan, and they barely are covering what's going on in Nebraska, the Panhandle, and everything like that right now. And now that I've experienced it, I'm like, I hope they're okay. I need to check in on this.
Yeah, there is definitely kind of an everyday concern. I mean, you know, before I moved out from Pennsylvania to Wyoming, I didn't think about, is there a tornado? Is there going to be hail? Is there going to be fire? Do I have to buy sprinklers and put them on my roof so in case the fire comes to town, you know, drought? I mean, I think that's sort of what makes the character of the West what it is. Because other than that, it's just a bunch of strange people living in a little town in the middle of nowhere, which you can easily get in the UP. You know, it's very different.
The UP is odd.
It's very, very different when you're, maybe more exposed. And something about back east. There's the woods, and there's something about feeling kind of enclosed. And you know, out here there's no trees. That's always surprising. Everybody is like, wow, there's zero trees. So wind, weather, you can see it all. Here it comes. You know, there's the big storm. There's so much of this in the summer, especially with these rolling storms you get, where it's like, is that one going to hit us? Where's that one going to go? And we do get tornadoes, and are they coming to town? And we had a fire, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago at this point, that was within town limits. You know, I've got a video of it coming down the hill, and it was just, you know, just insane to see that and think like, my first thought was, okay, the negatives are in the totes. We're gonna put them in the in the back of the pickup, because it's like, what's the first thing to save? So, but I think because you're always on edge like that out here, I guess it affects how you photograph, how you think, how you do things in ways you wouldn't think, because you're always on edge. There's always a degree of stress to living, but that's not fair. I mean, you could live in New York, and I always got a headache when I went to New York.
I've never been. I
Oh
don't think
wow!
I'm gonna, unless there's like a big photo event I want to go
Oh,
to. But I just do not. I hated driving in Chicago, and I know that New York is worse than Chicago, and I desperately don't want to drive in New York City.
think of New York. You haven't been to Philadelphia then,
I
have
have.
you?
I've been to Philadelphia.
Chicago is like New York meets Philadelphia. It's a manageable New York. So Chicago feels more like New York, but it's just more condensed in kind of, especially with the downtown loop. Just think of New York as like 50 downtown loops that just go on and on and on and on, and they all have different character. And I don't know. You're going to go someday. I know you are, because I remember in my Leica shooting days in Philadelphia, I was like black and white, Leica 28, never autofocus, never SLR, and now I'm shooting a Nikon F5, autofocus, auto everything. I mean, you balance it, but eventually your mind kind of opens up to, all right, maybe I don't like it, but maybe that's why I'll check it out.
Yeah, maybe. I have some friends out that way that want me to come out there, and I'm trying to convince them to come here, but their argument is way stronger than my argument, where it's like, why would we come there? And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I get it. We just have the little bad versions.
but that makes it, you know, and that's sort of some of the small appeal of like where I live, which I think anywhere, probably once, not counting Milwaukee and Chicago, just kind of the swath of Midwestern rural and on up to even Denver's kind of this, I don't know, I call it like a cultural landing spot for the East Coasters, the West Coasters, because that's where they end up in that region. But everything outside of that is very similar in what, you know, flyover country. That's what they call it, flyover country. And so what's the point? People say of visiting there, but when you live there and you see these little moments every day, and you have these little experiences, and you get to know this guy, and those opportunities, where in the city the opportunities are, oh, when a Graham walked out his door and made this famous picture, that's, those things are happening all the time, and they're there. Here it is, I guess you're, you know, like you with the farm stuff, you're appreciating something because of your constant exposure to it.
So the farm stuff's kind of translating to other things now, to where I am looking at like the factory industries and everything, and seeing if I can get into that, like manufacturing, because you mentioned something about doing
Yeah.
that, and I was thinking about it, and it's just, I don't know, man. There are these little moments, but they're so far and few between in these smaller towns that it's
Yeah.
just, when you finally come upon something, it's probably already been shot a billion times, or your one saving grace is if there happens to be a person at one of these old places, because then there's a story to tell. It's it's hard to tell the story without a subject.
There needs to be humanity. I mean, in some form, it's like, at least I know. I mean, there's a lot of people do landscape work, Ansel Adams, whatever, and that's fine. But my interest has always been, we're humans, we're naturally social, we're interested, we're, the very act of photographing and making something to be visible is not just for self-enjoyment. It's to be seen and shown, because we all know what we're interested in. I mean, we, you know, you photograph to say, how does that moment I saw in how is it captured and what are the details I missed? That's all interesting, but I think we all know the goal is to show it to other people, and so there has to be some element of that. But I mean, I was just thinking about that in Phoenix. That little reel I did of, hey, I'm walking down the street, really active cultural space here, a lot of stuff going on, and it's a sidewalk with nothing. And I did a separate little video. I didn't post it or anything, but it was funny because I was just kind of filming the depth of this sidewalk and all these concrete buildings and cars flying by. It's 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. They're in 40, flying by. And I zoom all the way down the sidewalk, and I'm like, if you look really close, there's a person way down there, and there's the street life. And it's funny that way, because even in that space, I'm like, oh God, what a horrible experience socially. But at the same time, I'm compelled to try to make a picture that captures both, I guess, that space being created by people, but also being vacated by them, which is really an amazing, like, people made this, but it's made to be unpleasant, or like made so thoughtlessly that it's unpleasant. I think I made this one picture at a crosswalk. I did another video too that I didn't post, but it was there was a little, there's no one around for far, lots of cars, and there's just a crosswalk with the little guy says, go ahead and walk. And I sort of turn and pan and zoom in. I'm like, I must be the first person who's ever considered crossing the street, even though this theoretical pedestrian infrastructure. And so I took a picture, and the only human figure was the crosswalk sign. It's just, there's poles and cars, and then there's a big Connex box and all of these dense elements, and the only potential human is like the representation of it to say you can walk, but nobody's walking except for me.
Going to major cities like that and realizing that people aren't going out like they used to, even. I've been to a lot of big cities recently, and a lot of them are ghost towns. I was shocked that Detroit had an excellent walking experience. There was a billion people out walking around down there. I was shocked. But like Albuquerque, reasonably, nobody was out walking around.
You were just there. You were just there. I was there in 2018, and it was the same. It was the same thing. I have a friend who was sort of from there, and he said, "Oh, you got to go to this area." But the general downtown, the only place with people was the bus depot, and I kind of quickly learned that was not a place to spend too much time with a camera. Sometimes you get the feel it's like, we are going to kill you and take your camera and then break it.
They don't even want the camera. No, they just want to kill you and take it because they can.
Yeah, like you are not the right kind of crazy to be. I mean, when I lived in Philadelphia, I lived in North Philly. I went to college at Temple, and North Philly is like Detroit.
Yeah,
pretty much the worst parts of Detroit. And parts of it are getting better, but you really, off the main street, you get that in your shell feeling of like, I shouldn't be here photographing, and somebody's just going to come around a corner and decide to light me up. And that's how I wandered in Detroit in some of those neighborhoods that are totally razed. Went with a friend one time just to see, and we stayed. It was up Woodward Avenue, Woodward Avenue, and one of these old mansions that was like an Airbnb, and it was amazing. It's like this mansion. The lady's like, "Yeah, I bought it for $50,000," and we wanted to walk to Hamtramck.
You wanted to walk to Hamtramck?
Walk to it from Woodward Avenue. We did. And it's funny because my friend, he called it the Hamtramck Challenge. We walked at night from the mansion to Hamtramck and found a little bar to get to. And it was a couple blocks and the challenge is like, there's no houses. So as soon as somebody appears, it's like a Pokemon, like they're going to see us.
Oh, yeah. They'll see you and they're going to want to talk usually.
Yes. They're going to want to, something, an encounter will occur because there's no cover. And so I just remember, what did I do? I bought a little half frame, Canon Demi E17. Focuses, there's no rangefinder. You just kind of guess focus. And that whole trip, I just brought that. And I think maybe a Canonet. QL17. Something I felt like if this got stolen, I wouldn't mind. And the Canon half frame was great because it's so small. You could just, and I didn't know about the Canon or the Olympus XA or any of those at the time. And this was before the point and shoot craze, but I found this and you could fit 72 frames. So you kind of could carry less rolls, get more pictures. And I shot a whole bunch of pictures just on this very quick 2-day trip. And I didn't have to worry about it. And it was interesting because those spaces and that kind of that fear, that's when I started thinking other than the Leica. I'm like, okay, the Leica is not appropriate everywhere, both because it's price and how it's used, and thinking about how an environment can either require, just based on my feeling, because someone else could go in there and be like, full on whatever, and they feel comfortable in it. But for me, it was, this camera is what feels comfortable. And so I'm going to make work that's reflective of that discomfort in that space. And the camera is going to have this very informal feeling. And that's when I started breaking into that kind of, oh yeah, well, the focus isn't going to be exactly right. Or I really don't know what I'm going to get. Not even because it's on film, because it's like, was that really 5 meters or 3? I don't know. And so that influenced me a lot in that regard. I don't even know if I have any good pictures. They're in a binder somewhere. But yeah, my 4,000, 5,000 rolls of film,
dude.
I need to go through.
Yeah, you have some digging to go through.
Backlog.
Yeah.
Backlog.
Detroit, I'm more shocked every time I go to Detroit now, because I've been going there for almost 30 years now. Even when I was with my parents, we'd go there sometimes for events. And I was telling my kids, I was like, you guys don't understand. This is not the Detroit we grew up with. The Detroit we grew up with was, you go downtown, you might not make it out. Like, you get out of your car, you run to the event, you run back to the car if it's still there, and then you get home. But they were just amazed walking around down there. It's so nice now. The amenities down in downtown Detroit are phenomenal. I'm sure the outside areas are still really rough, like Inkster and Hamtramck. Dearborn is here and there, but it's just,
I mean, at least there's jobs like Hamtramck. Part of why I was interested is it has a very dense Polish community, that big immigrant, and then there's a lot of the food from Polish food. But with some of the factories still being open up there, there's still and it's its own town, which is weird. It's a what do they call it? An enclave. It is a municipality within a municipality, totally self-governed. And so they kind of have you do kind of cross the line and feel like you're in this different place. Obviously, Detroit leaks in and out. It's very porous, but that was interesting because you go from raised buildings to, okay, there's a little bit of a main street. People live here. And that's how it was. I mean, there's some of those very wealthy parts of, Grosse Pointe is not in Detroit, but you go, I remember looking at it on Google Maps, there's concrete barriers where they're like, nope, we don't want people coming into our side of the town. And you do cross over, and it's like, these beautiful Tudor mansions and trees and all that stuff. And on the Detroit side, there's nothing. And it really is block by block that way, like truly.
Yes. It's shocking. We shoot a lot of music videos down that way. And when we're down there shooting, there's a lot of abandoned buildings we'll hit to shoot this stuff. But then you go around the corner from this old abandoned school that's like 6 buildings big, like 3 stories tall, incredible architecture inside it. You go around the corner from this bombed out building, and there's just like people who own private jets live next to this. And it's so shocking that it hasn't bled over into their neighborhoods, because their property values are insane right now.
Yeah, no, it's, I remember, what is it? Corktown is kind of, I guess Corktown was probably because it's close to the downtown too. And the, what's the big Detroit Central station? When I went there, that's that big train station. That was empty still. And they were like, what do we do with it? Before Ford bought it. And that was kind of the reason people went from downtown to there. And it was very hipster vibe in that way. It was the nice restaurants, and it was relatively safe. And I think it was a big Irish neighborhood, or probably was. I'm sure it was just hipster neighborhood by the time. And it was interesting. It's like downtown, really nice area, and of course it's divided by the highway and everything. And then you have these other areas that are like, wow, the city had 2 million people and now it has 600,000. And so that this is what that looks like, is empty, like one house way over here. There's a lot of famous pictures up Woodward Avenue, or at least a little off, where you can see the Renaissance Center. And then they'll have, a bunch of the buildings in the back, and then they'll have decaying, empty, like in the same shot. And it looks like it's composite together. It's a very Batman, RoboCop, which takes place in Detroit, but has that feel where it's like post 80s, kind of, even the crime has gone. Like nothing is left.
So the Renaissance Center, they're talking about demolishing it.
What? Just, is it not functioning, or?
From what I understand, GM is moving their headquarters elsewhere, and there's been so many tenants leaving the Renaissance building that they're talking about getting rid of it.
Wow. I mean, every time I went, it was always on a weekend. I've been to Detroit 2 or 3 times. It's always been very empty, and of course it's on the weekend, but they have like that food court area, and then there's the kind of big porch in the back that views the river, but no one was ever really there. And then of course they've got the people mover, and that stops there. The crazy one-way
Oh yeah.
loop. Do they still take tokens for that? That's what I loved about
Dude,
it.
I haven't ridden that in probably like 10 years or so.
Okay, that's probably when I wrote it, and they still had tokens. You bought tokens at the station, but I was always amazed, like, oh, do you want to go one stop over? Well, you have to ride all the way around, which is fine, because it was kind of amazing as a photographic opportunity to be elevated and get a view into everything in the downtown from this car. But of course, you get to the stop and the doors open. It's like, who's going to come on and rob me?
Yeah, dude, you get off in the wrong neighborhood, it's game over. But you're
Yeah,
kind of like, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry, but I'm kind of thinking that you're like
no, it's
an
okay.
enigma, because you live out in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming. But you're like, anytime I'm talking to you, you're like, I'm flying to a major city and we're seeing what the hell's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, so I lived in Philly for, oh gosh, so I grew up in, was Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Suburban hell is what I call it. Um, exactly like anywhere else. All your cul-de-sacs, and couldn't do anything until you were 16, 17 and drive. And so Philly was 30 minutes away. That was the big city that was nearby. And I went to college at Temple U, their Tyler School of Art, in 2009. I was there until 2013. So I was in the city. The college is in North Philly. And so I lived in North Philly, but I'm like near the downtown. And it's funny, because when I went to college, I was all like Ansel Adams. I was shooting 4x5, and being in the city, it eventually got to me, and for two reasons. One was, there's no nature I mean, there's parks. And so what I would do is I'd go out and I'd find a park, and I'd take my huge tripod and my box and and go out and take a picture of a careful little leaf. And I did this for like freshman, sophomore year. And that was hard. You had to get on the train and go out, and I did it over. I just was dedicated. I'm going to do that. And then you don't get access to the photography stuff until at least a sophomore, really a junior, is when you start getting, because you have to, in Tyler, you have to start with the foundations, the painting, or not even painting, it's drawing, sculpture, stuff you don't want to do. Oh, let's fold some paper and make I don't care. um, I've got some great stories about that, where I got so fed up on this one project where I got a terrible grade, and I think the professor just didn't like me, or it was some wacky, and I worked really, really hard. And the next project, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do something ridiculous, and I bet you I'll get an A. And it was like make a mold. And so I made a mold of a banana, and I just made like 20 or 30 of them, and I painted them all red. And I'm like, I'm just going to put them in the water fountain and call it Dadaism. And I got an A on it.
Of course you did.
So, which just made me like, great, I have no faith in the effort and payoff of the system. So I went down to the darkroom a lot, and I kind of begged them my freshman year. I'm like, look, I know I can't take any classes, but can I use the darkroom, please? And they did let me use the darkroom. They let me kind of work in the photo cage, which was nice. So I got to know people even in in freshman year, and I got to know the professors. So by sophomore year, I had a great professor who I'm still friends with, and I what I like about him is he's very unserious. He's not one of those like Gandalf is going to look at your prints, you know. And because there were a lot of those professors, and it's like, oh, you know, very wise. And he was a very unserious guy, but in an intelligent way. And so I was like, you know, let's look at my. I think I actually had him for a basic class that year. And after class, he sat and looked at all my stuff, me and my proud portfolio with all my Ansel Adams ask bullshit. And so I lay it out, and he's just like, he tried to be nice. He was like, you know what, this is Ansel Adams is so attractive for the technical perfection, you know, the almost like sexual perfection of the rich blacks that he gets. And he's like, sort of like, what's the point of it though? Like, what are you doing? What are you trying to say? Why are you doing this? Is this just exercise? And he said, you know, you need to look at Walker Evans, you need to look at Robert Frank, and people I'd never heard of at the time, Gary Winogrand and all those people. And me being, I don't know how old you are, you know, 18, 19 years old, 20 years old maybe, you naturally are like, no, I know what I'm doing. You know, you just you withdraw. But Walker Evans is the one that kind of got to me because I felt like this is a safe next step because he shot 4x5. He worked for the FSA in the 30s and did all of these 4x5 very composed shots, but it was of regular American life and the Dust Bowl and that kind of stuff. So it was like the next natural step from here's Ansel Adams who's photographing mountains and trees I've never seen and things I didn't even realize were in California and Wyoming. And funny enough, I ended up living in Wyoming, but just saw those and I'm like, oh, beautiful. I don't have that, but great. And you go to Walker Evans, who's like, he's working with the same equipment. He's working in a similar way, but now it's the subject is more engaging. It's maybe something that could move. It's maybe something that you could talk to. And a lot of it is there's no people, you know, street shot of this Pennsylvania town in the 30s showing all the cars. And so then I started getting into that. And at the time, there was a what was the protest? The Occupy Wall Street protest. That was right around that, like 2011, 12, somewhere in there. And so now I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm going to use the 4x5. I'm going to use it in space. And so I took it down there, and I have this one photograph of a guy in a booth, and it's got all this political signage, and it's interesting because the guy looks like Saddam Hussein. Like that's the best way to describe him. That's what he looks like. And he's sitting in this booth, and he has like a sort of nasty expression, but the signs say like fight racism, poverty, and war. And it became Occupy Wall Street, and then anyone else who wanted to say anything just piled on. And so it was for me, it was like a visual tapestry of this American expression. And I tried using the 4x5. I made one good picture there, started going around the city trying to set it up, and it's slow. And people yell at you, you know, and it's like, I had a guy come out of a store and he's like, you can't photograph this building. And I'm like, what? How do we even begin to discuss? You know, this is the definition of public space. I am observing your building. That guy just took a picture with his phone. That guy's streaming it to the internet. And here I am because my camera is so, and so that was, I didn't care so much. It just was like, what I'm interested is so fleeting. This camera's not getting it. And so I don't remember how, but I naturally at some point, and I even had some medium format, had a Nikon F3. I was putting Pan F in and shooting it on a tripod. And at some point I was like, I'm going to sell all of this and buy a Leica M3. And I did. And I got that. And I had a little 50 millimeter lens on it. And that was it. And it was this amazing freeing experience to all this stuff and all this effort. And I'm going to, now this is all I have. And it's kind of worn out. It works good. Maybe the lens is a little worn out. And I'm just going to go out there and stick rolls in it. And from then on, I was hooked, you know. And so that transition was kind of amazing from how do I get knocked off that peak of safety. I think all photographers go through that. Is I'm a visual graph guy, you know, my data analyst. So I always think of it as you've got your starting point, you get to this peak. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's the same type of thing. You know, confidence and experience, and you get all this confidence. And I think a lot of people die at the top of that hill. They get very safe, and that's where I could have been, just doing this Ansel Adams crap for a long time. But I was able to look back and say, yeah, it was all technical. Like I'm willing to accept that what I was doing was not meaningful, in terms of the work. It was meaningful in terms of me learning how to be a photographer, and now I have an excellent technical foundation because of it. But to make the jump from that and go, I'm going to start fresh with this Leica, all that professional equipment is going to be gone, and I'm just going to start fresh with a new way of shooting, get it wrong, guess. I had to guess exposures, didn't have a meter, didn't have an external meter. It was just the camera and the lens. And that kind of kicked me into, what am I really interested in? And that's where that went.
Because you are a very social person, it seems like. Like you enjoy speaking with others. You like going into social situations, but I don't. You like the interaction with humans, and I don't. I typically do not like interacting with humans all that much, and I actually think it's a product of where I live and the attitude of people in the Midwest and the Great Lakes region.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man.
But most photographers probably, I mean, it's a very introverted activity, isn't it? I mean, we're kind of, everybody's very careful and very shy and fearful. And I mean, how often do you hear, oh, I want to photograph? Everybody just calls it street photography, but I wouldn't even call it that. Just in general, it's like, I'm interested. Some woman with a baby, I'm interested. There's a couple and they're going to kiss, or there's an old man reading a paper, and people have this natural hesitation. I think that comes from their natural introverted nature, because extroverted people are not typically the creative types, where they're not looking at, how do I internalize how I receive the world. They're out there making it. I'm going to make the world and push in that. And so you're right. It's weird for me. I don't think I was very social. I couldn't have guessed 10 years ago I'd be the mayor of a town, which is a very social, you know, and not in always a positive way. But you kind of start trying it, and then at some point you just realize, like, people are people, and some of them, a lot of them, want to be seen, and some of them just want to be heard, and they don't mind, you photographing them. And some people really have a sense of elevation. There was a picture in Robert Frank's The Americans where, I don't even know if there was a picture, but I have a book where he sort of describes some of the journey, and he said, these people I came to their place. I think it's a woman in a chair in a field, and she's kind of sitting there like this. And he said, this family just kept bringing out stuff to show him. They were so proud of what they had and how they looked. And they're like, this guy has the camera, and that's like, we're going to be remembered in that kind of way. And it has a great dual purpose. So it becomes easy to socialize it, especially in a small town. People think more of, I need to be in these dense environments to photograph people. But I think once you're honest about it, like this weekend at the track, that the drag race, and there was a woman there. We were photographing under this cover, and this woman was smoking, and I was kind of like, is something interesting going to happen? I'm going to go over there, and if I'm interested, I'll photograph. But before I could, she comes over to me, just, and at first it was kind of you're photographing on these random people. What are you doing? And I think me in the past would have been maybe cagey about it, and we get that way. We're, you're caught with your pants down. But now that I have so much of this kind of confrontational experience, I was like, I'm interested in American life. I'm interested in what regular people do. I'm not looking for Evel Knievel's shot jumping through the hoop. I think a lot of people think of photography as that way. Good photography is the decisive moment. And there's something valuable to that, maybe in a part of a whole. But I was always interested in the idea of the indecisive moment. I always think of this picture at CVS where I was paying for in Philadelphia, I was paying for whatever I was buying. And there's two girls, and this one has this long receipt. And it was so fast, I didn't intend to shoot it from the hip, but I did. And I just kind of was like, well, that's got to be 1.5 meters. And as far as I could bring it up before the moment went away, I just took it. And I think about that picture because I'm like, what a boring everyday moment. But the picture is great. It's so, this long receipt. The one girl's kind of like this, the other one's looking at the receipt. And that's what's inspired me from the beginning. And I think we're all interested in that. I don't think we're all out for Evil Knievel going through the hoop at the just the right moment, or Cartier-Bresson's there's on the water, and and so there's a natural interest, but then there's sort of a, we're afraid, we're scared to get into those moments because we're worried about what people will think about what we're doing. And I think us as photographers would be surprised more often than not to find out how often the vast majority of Americans get it. They get it. The ranchers, some of the ranchers here specifically, they don't even really question. I mean, they're not even necessarily out of interest. Oh, what are you going to do with that? There's none of those questions. It's just sort of, he likes to take pictures. That's what he does. And I'm like, yeah,
I
that's
get
it.
it.
I just like to take pictures. I mean, I think we're so worried and wrapped up about explaining why, or getting used to explaining why. And there's a huge sense in cities. I mean, if I get yelled at, it's in a city, and it's always a guy who's very well off. In Denver, first time in years, someone in Denver yelled at me the other day. It was this, more clearly well off younger guy and his wife and the baby. And I just took the picture, and he was like, what are you doing? What are you taking pictures of? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in what's going on. And it turned into this little scuffle. And he just was like, well, you look weird doing that. And I said, I don't give a shit. I, which is sort of, that's how I was more in the early days of Philly, because being in the city, you got used to more of this, and it's the East Coast. So it's much more transactional interaction. I almost wanted to ask the guy, I'm like, you must be from New York City, because anyone really from the West doesn't act like that. And it's usually wealthier people who are from the coastal places where everything is transactional, and really more the East Coast. The West Coast isn't that way so much. Even the wealthy people are more relaxed. But that kind of conflict, that I own my image, or even more so, I own the space around me, or I'm entitled to it, even when I'm in public, and you can't, it's almost like it has nothing to do with the photograph. The photograph was just stealing that confidence and control away from somebody who thinks that this belongs to me and I have it. And people who are just regular, lower middle class, live in rural areas, I've found pretty much none of that exists. They're very understanding that life is interesting and we're interested in it. And people play music, they make photographs, they make paintings, and they appreciate it. Wow, you took the time to take a look. And that's been endlessly surprising to me living out here. But I definitely became more social living here, and seeing people every day, because you're interacting more than you are you're having more meaningful interactions. In the city, it's just, you'd be fortunate if that girl trying to walk by you on the sidewalk even looks at you, let alone gives you a smile. And having any kind of interaction, they were all transactional. It was the guy you bought something from at the store, you're something to your boss. Out here, it's just, the small talk, oh, the weather wasn't so great yesterday, or, well, Bill's going through cancer treatment, and, oh, we're going to get ready. And that might frustrate some people, but in a way, it teaches you to navigate social situations, people's everyday problems. And then, of course, becoming the mayor, you are literally shouldering those people's problems. And so you got to listen to someone who may not even understand how to vocalize the problem they have. And that can be really hard and frustrating, but learning how to meet people where they are has made me a much better photographer.
I don't like the confrontation. Like, that's the thing. Because, so I have photographed in my small, I'll even say the town at this point. I photographed in Lapeer, Michigan. And there was like a parade, a 4th of July parade, or some Lapeer Days event thing going on. And I shot photos of the event, and I posted some in the local group. And there were people talking about, I'm going to sue you, my kid's in this photo, you're not allowed.
Oh my
So
God.
it's translated to the
Oh,
small towns out here now. So, like,
Damn.
I took my camera to Lapeer with my son. It was like, I don't know, 5:30 at night, and it was in the winter, so the sun was starting to go down a little bit. And three cops kept circling me while I was out shooting. And I had it on like a
Man.
tripod, so like it was kind of dark. They might have thought it was like a
Yeah,
rifle,
a little
but
more visible.
at
But
the same
still.
time, I'm like, and then we park out behind this building, and I go to my car, and the cops come around the corner. He's like, "Well, what were you doing?" And I was like, "I was taking photos." And he's like, "Well, why?" I was like, "Because it's the only thing to do in this fucking town, dude. So I don't know what you're
Yeah.
upset about." And he's like, "No, I was just
Well,
wondering. I was just wondering."
I get it because me in my Philly days, because some people would do that in the city, in New York, DC. I went to a lot of different places, and people would do that, and I gained a more confrontational attitude at the time, which was, I have a right to do this. This is an American expression. I mean, at the time, I'm in my 20s, so naturally everything is a fight, and I'm up for the challenge. But it was much more of that, like, I have the right to do this, and I have a First Amendment right to do this, and I'm fortunate that I've never, not that I can think of, experienced that in a small town. I remember one time in a random suburb in Idaho, I was just interested in this crazy view of all the houses kind of down the row. And I went in there to photograph, and they were building some. And so I stopped in the cul-de-sac. And maybe it was just PTSD from growing up on a cul-de-sac, was literally what I grew up in. And I remember back when I started photography, that's where I lived. I was in high school, and I was like, I want to take pictures of things. And I remember when you walk around those neighborhoods, it's like everyone's in their house looking at me through the blinds. That's how you feel. And it's like, how am I going to take any, and back then I wasn't thinking, how do I capture the space? It was just, I want to make some pictures. I'm interested. And my first picture was two benches in the park because it was the only thing I didn't feel, that was going to kill me. And so I was in this Idaho neighborhood, very similar to that. And there was some guy watching me, and I'm just like photographing the general view. And he got out of his house. I was getting in my car. He came out of his house and like followed me all the way out of the neighborhood. And I could tell he was like, and I'm just like, and that was interesting because some of that was before I moved out here. I was taking trips out west, kind of made me start thinking more about how urban space affects photography and urban development and the decisions of suburban hell that affected me growing up, living like, you start to question, like, why do I live in this miserable place? And then you go some of these wonderful little towns that are less confrontational than yours, where people are open to things. Emporium, Pennsylvania, I had a wonderful experience with a mechanic, and I just wandered into his shop, and then he invited me to his porch, and we're hanging out, and the kids are there, and then they wanted to show me a grave in the cemetery for, it was a family member. I mean, it's just an amazing experience, and I had a lot of those fortunate good experiences. But when I have those miserable ones, I just start thinking, like, why does that place exist, and why are people always miserable there, and why is it so boring to photograph? Which I think led up to me getting into politics, because I felt like I I want to fix that, at least in some microcosm of a level. Is like, how do we stop a town that isn't going in that direction yet but could? It's at this point where it could become more traditional, interactive, social. And how do you affect things politically to create a space that is naturally interesting, engaging, and amazingly financially productive, and therefore also photographable? Like the places we love, I think generically photographers love, maybe at least you and I, small towns, there's activity, there's people outside, people are happy. They're places that are financially productive. Their urban planning is sound, their zoning is good. Unfortunately, today they're always wealthier places because people with education and more money know how to do that. And then places where I live, there's no, I mean, the zoning laws have been the same since the 90s, which some random person arbitrarily decided, I'm going to write up a law for what I think, and the people worked really hard on it back then, but I don't think they understood the negative ramifications. Was no one moved in and built anything. Buildings got torn down. It got worse over time. And so it became less photographable and also less financially productive and good for the town. So there's an interesting marriage between places we love to be and places that are successful in a municipal finance standpoint. And there's an amazing crossover, and that started. I kind of figured a good starting point. Me and two friends opened this little mercantile in Chugwater before I was the mayor, and it was just out of this idea of like there isn't, what do we call them, third spaces. It's a space you can be in. It's like a store, but you can be there, and there weren't many of those. And so I wanted to make that and throw money into it and make that happen and have that come true, and see like, is all it takes a little bit of effort and time and of course some money to do that. And in a way, financially it does okay. It has a lot of trouble. There's always now all the headaches I never imagined of keeping people employed, and employees who will screw you, and customers who will screw you, and then just some of the conflict between partners and all those things you don't imagine, that start from just a dream of, I want to make this place. But in a way it has been. I went down and got some eggs from the store this morning that I'm a part owner in, and there was two locals down there just chatting, and some people sit and drink coffee by the fire, and it's like, well, we made that place. And now I think people come in, I've had photographers come in, and it's interesting enough inside that it is a place you're naturally attracted to and you want to photograph. And so that was like a proof of concept for me, is like, yeah, we like these places, and they're also places that are good for communities because they encourage buying, they encourage people spending time there, and they enjoy it, locals and tourists. And why doesn't a small town deserve to have a nice place? So I took that to being mayor, and it's been hard. It's been hard.
Do you like it though?
I do like it. um, I like the challenge. I think the hardest part about it is I love to have a fair debate where I can have my views, you can have yours, we can kind of go back and forth. I've just found in the past year there are some people who, they're not starting from a point of like, what is the philosophical idea that we can kind of mold together, or what is something that we can come through a compromise. I always think of this song from Hamilton. It's I don't know what the name, the room where it happened. That's what it's called. So if you look that up, the room where it happened, it's Hamilton, Jefferson, and I think Adams, and it takes place for like it's like the 1812 compromise on where DC would be located. And it was, well, New York can keep the financial system, and DC will be, the capital will be in DC down on the river, which is closer to the south, and they compromised on that. And the song is like, the art of the compromise, hold your nose and close your eyes. And it's really true that way. I think in theater it sounds like, oh yeah, compromise, people are going back and forth, there's dancing, it's fun. But in reality, it is five people sitting on a council where like this person or this person disagrees with you on such a fundamental level that they will never grasp your perspective. And somehow you have to come to a middle ground to move forward that neither of you are going to be happy with, because or at least you believe, this is exactly right, this is exactly how it should be, I'm not wrong, I've got all the proof. And that person will not see it. They will not. And sometimes they won't even compromise, they vote no, and you have to go forward and hope, do I have three yeses if there's two no's, and that type of thing. And that's a whole nother deal. But can we, okay, you want to buy that thing for the town for 20,000, I don't think we should spend more than 5,000. Is 10,000 going to get us there? We get more bang for our buck at 12, and I enjoy that on a straight principle level. At the end of the day, you always leave unsatisfied, because you always feel like we could have done more, we could have done better, and because of somebody's hard-headed inability to see, we didn't get there. And to some degree, the humbling aspect of that is you have to look at yourself and say, maybe I'm not always right, which is a good thing to do. It's a good thing to look and say, maybe I'm not always right. But sometimes you are right, because you've got the numbers. Or I question myself a lot. I'll consult with the town's engineers, the town's lawyer, state agencies, and they'll all say, yep, this is exactly right. And you'll still have members of council that are like, nope, or I don't understand that, or I'm not going to go along with that, or I don't like this. that's, I think, when it gets really hard, because you're just like, it's fun to kind of work in this American experiment together and come up from a point of different perspectives. But when we just hit a straight up wall that has, it feels like nothing more than an educational block, and we're just not getting to where we need to be just because of a lack of something, of capacity in that person's ability or want or how they feel that day. And some of it is even personal disposition. Some people just have a negative disposition to you, or because it was your idea. And I think that's got to be, it's not just a small town thing, it's just politics in general. Is, I mean, look at Congress. It's like, there are, there are people who just, well, we're a Democrat and we vote this way, and we're Republican, we vote this way. And the reality is most decisions are made by five people that cross the line, and there's the hard entrenched people on either side who've never voted anything other than party line. And now I guess I know how frustrating that is, because there are sensible people who are like, but that isn't right. And there's nothing that says it is. Like, there's not even a way for me to say, okay, if I was in your shoes, like, it's still wrong and it's bad for your constituents. And so I kind of argue with that stuff with some members of council. And it's just like, you go home and you just feel like, I'm so unsatisfied. And the only way out of that feeling is like, I'm trying. It is getting better. We are getting some things done. And if I wasn't here trying, who would be here? What would be going on? Would be, we'd probably be backsliding in the other direction. So you have to rest on something, and you can't just beat yourself up. But there's very few big wins. There's no big successes, and cut the ribbon, kiss the baby. That's just not a thing. Maybe not in this town.
You bring up a good point about not even necessarily about politics, but it's politics adjacent, where people people willing to have a conversation and seeing things from multiple points of view and being open-minded to having that conversation. And I think it's lacking in every aspect of life right now. I think it's local groups, the community in general. Everybody's afraid of, like, if I'm out photographing, everybody's afraid of some kind of voyeurism. Everybody's paranoid. Everybody's anxious. Everybody's at each other's throats. And I feel like if we actually sat down and had a conversation away from where media influence is and away from where your phone is beaming bad thoughts into your head at an alarming rate, like, we would relate to each other so much more. If you could just have a conversation, find a compromise that works, because you have to find compromises in life. Otherwise, your life's going to be fucking miserable. If you go through life never being completely, never getting your way 100%, you're going to hate life. Life is going to suck for you.
I think what's happening, and I've identified this with people in the community that I struggle with, council, public, whatever, is a lot of the things that just seem like hardline positions, or like the guy who yelled at me in Denver or whatever it is. People are kind of acting from their own disposition of how comfortable or happy they are, and that's where, like, I kind of had a welling up of that conflict of like, screw you, I can do what I want. But now I mean, that was more just gut trigger reaction to, like, this is how you deal with this. I could just walked away, have a nice day. And I've got a lot better about that. But you find a lot of that stuff comes from people are having a really hard time, and everybody's having, and that's, I think, the common ground of why everybody's agitated. But also the common ground is people feel like they're having a hard time. They're not getting as much. And again, this is sort of what led me into politics. Is I really believe personally a lot of that stems from the urban environment that we're in. I mean, people are happier in places like Denmark for a reason, or in a lot of European countries in general. And it's because they have excellent public transit, and they have excellent social networks, and they have very old communities where they appreciate history. And when you go to some of these places like Phoenix, Arizona, where it's like, that building that's 100 years old doesn't matter at all, let's put up a Hyatt, ugly Hyatt, whatever, or a WeWork, and our 6-lane highway needs to be repaved over before we improve the public transit network to get the average person to that downtown space. I think people can only even if they don't remark on it, and they don't think about it, and they don't talk about it in terms of urban planning and zoning and all this stuff, that's going to affect you when you're walking down the street and you go, well, that nice old thing is gone and my community doesn't value it anymore. And that's upsetting. And the space that I'm in is such a miserable thing. And I made all the effort and time to come out here. That really beats people down. And then you go home and the grocery prices are high and the gas prices are high. And I mean, and even if they weren't back in January, some of those things, the gas prices were quite low. If people don't feel like life is, maybe this is pretty dark, but if life isn't worth living, like what's the point? You know, the average American probably now is waking up the way I grew up. Here, you're on the cul-de-sac, you go out, you get in the car, you drive the worm, the dead worm, we call it, to, you know, to the shopping center, which is an island, and it's not encouraging you to do anything other than get into. I mean, in Cheyenne, for example, if you want to go to Target, Walmart, and FedEx, you have to drive to each of them. There is no park and visit all three, and you're driving on a 4-lane highway. It's, you know, a Strode, as there's a group called Strong Towns that kind of advocates to fix these things and how it betters society, and more on the political side of things. But they call it a Strode. It's a road and a street mixed together, where a street is like access to businesses, residents, low speed, 10 miles an hour, and a road is a high-speed connector between places. And so a Strode, in every city has one, very easy to identify. They're usually about 40 miles an hour. They have lights on them, and then there's businesses to access. So you go from 40 to, oh, I've got to turn at 10 miles an hour. People ram the person in the back. The speed is so fast that when the light changes, you feel you need to speed up to get through it. And I challenge you this on your local Strode: time yourself and find out what your average speed is from like a 1 mile block. And I guarantee it's almost always 20 to 25 miles an hour. And so this group advocates, they're like, from an engineering standpoint, if you just made the road a 2-lane road and set it to 25 miles an hour, it would move the same amount of cars. It would be more pedestrian friendly. People could cross a 2-lane instead of a 4. And people would be able to turn at comfortable speeds. It would move the same volume, and there would be less accidents for the same volume. So you can do all the same things, but the mentality is now, okay, we put in a light because now there's too many cars. So engineers say that warrants a light. Now the light goes in, and so you hit the light. I got to get going, you know, zoom, and you do 70 to make up for not doing 40, which causes accidents. And so people are living that every day, and every interaction in what could be a pleasant experience, and was in some of these older neighborhoods. You go into old Denver and you go into old Detroit and you go into, and it's a shame because it's wealthier people, because the society has kind of figured out those places are nice, but they haven't figured out we should build more of them. And so because there's so few of them, only wealthy people get those beautiful, the mansion on the park. I mean, in Denver, there's a mansion, but there'll be a duplex, which was probably built for a poor family, but it's now $1 million because they're not building more of it. So the intention was for it to be affordable, and different peoples of different backgrounds and classes could live in the same neighborhood and enjoy the park. But now, because we just build these inaccessible $700,000 suburban, totally failing financial infrastructure, that is not accessible to the average person. The average person has to live so far out of town that, what they call it, like drive until you can qualify, something like that. And because the cheap land is at the end. And as cities do this, they become more financially insolvent because all the infrastructure is never afforded by the property taxes that it collects. It's like a Ponzi scheme. They just keep building more and more and more. And that's, from a municipal standpoint, that's miserable. But what we're dealing with in the people we photograph or interact with and how people are angry today is, I think it's because most people are living in these miserable spaces. And so it's hard to find each other and meet each other in a middle ground when we're all so miserable and angry every day, just questioning why we even get up. And, you know, lunch is McDonald's and dinner is something I bought at Walmart, but I had to mail something and drive through the parking lot to here, and that lady almost hit me. And I mean, if you just go through your day and mark how many times you had like stress or conflict or misery, because the places we live in are not worth living in almost, and that makes it really hard to photograph. And in a weird way, it's something I've kind of focused on photographing as a challenge is, okay, well, if we're stuck with all this misery, how do I try to capture some of that? Um, we go shopping at Walmart because that's what there is. And so I always bring my camera and photograph at Walmart. So um, I don't know if I'm getting anything, but it's like if I'm there and I'm experiencing it, the least I can do is photograph it. It's not what I like, but it's what's there, and I feel something about it. Uh, but I would much prefer. I love being in those places that are more pleasant, and I just wish we made more of them. And I think we would have an easier time finding common ground then if our base default every day was not what who's going to run into me, what's going to happen, is my insurance too high, can I make the all that stuff.
I did want to bring up, dude, how you feeling about your Instagram success lately, man?
Oh, it's weird. I don't know what's normal, I guess.
Not that.
And maybe a lot of not that not I think the fastest growth I had in one day was 545 followers. And because it gives you the stats, you can see what is bringing people. Some people just follow you, and either from a post or they saw a post and went to your profile and followed you. But mine are probably 90% from the reels I'm posting. And it just started with, I mean, I've been posting reels. I'm not on an Instagram that long. I'm very late to the game. It started with 2 years ago. We had our rodeo here, and a friend of mine who's a musician, Sterling Drake, who has an Instagram and a good following, great musician. He was actually doing some 8 millimeter movie or 60 millimeter movie for sort of like a B-roll for his music video at my rodeo. And he was performing at the rodeo. I had booked him for or the cook-off event, and I had booked him for the event. And he's just this down-to-earth, very humble guy, but a beautiful musician, great guy, and a cowboy, and a good cowboy too. And afterwards, he was like, "Can I see some of your work?" And I said, "Well, I can send you an email." And he's like, "You got to get an Instagram." And he like basically signed me up right there. And I was so hesitant for years. I'm like, I'm not going to do a website. It was sort of like the remnant of the old Leica me. No autofocus, no SLRs. I only do darkroom. And I think I wasn't available mentally until he was like, you know what, you need to do this. And I'm like, you're probably right. I need to just put myself out there and not think of this as undermining some moral fiber. And so it was June 2023. I got my Instagram set up, started just kind of putting some posts. I didn't really know how social media worked. And really, until just a couple months ago, that's all I did. And I would make occasional reels. Oh, here's me loading this camera. Or, hey, you've never seen a Nikon F4. Look how fast it rewinds. And there was no sense of like, how do I structure this to show it in a way that engages people? Because I wasn't thinking, oh, people are just scrolling. So how do you? It's not YouTube. They're not in for the long haul. They're just there for interesting content. Everybody says, and it made me kind of start thinking more. It's like, I don't need to sell out. I don't need to be one of these people. Hey, stop scrolling. I've got 4 tips that'll blah blah. And then they don't say anything of meaning. It's like they're just half the time they're just saying, how do you structure your, like, it's very meta. They're just, how do you structure your Instagram reels? And I knew what I wanted to say and what I wanted to share. And then I just realized I need to kind of match the medium and how people engage with it. And so I had a few reels and I was kind of watching them. The first one that did any more than like a couple hundred views was, I was in Denver at a pool hall with my friend. He was shooting pool and I had my Nikon F3, and I just thought, I'm going to just put the camera into it has a nice big viewfinder, very easy for the camera to get into. I just use my iPhone, stick it up in the viewfinder, and I had pre-focused it so that I could just put it up in there. Knew I wanted to focus on him. So it kind of doesn't work. Like, I can't just walk around and I'm focusing. So it only works for these pre-focused shots that maybe aren't the best ones or the most engaging, but it gives some sense of what I'm doing and looking at, and I can splice that in with images. But I did that, And I didn't even post, I just posted it as a reel, which I found out people hate this. They want to see the result. I found that out. But I just was like, I just want to share this moment. It was nice, the clack of the camera, the shooting of the pool. And I posted it and it got like 3,000 some views, which was way more. And I'm like, okay, people like this stuff. I like doing it. So then I think on the way back, I did a video at Buc-ee's with my Leica, and then the guy yells, "Hey, fresh sauce on the board." And I think, and that one really took off more. And I think it was because people liked the complexity of, here's the camera, it's a Leica that's going to grab people. I realize that grabs people. I just shoot with it. And then this guy yells, "That's weird." Now I'm interested. And so that kind of made me realize how they need to get structured. And then I did the Portrait 800 reel because I was like, let me do another one. I go to In-N-Out Burger and shoot pictures there anyway. I don't like the burgers still, but I go. Yeah, that's going to really get me walloped. But I really don't. It's a 6 out of 10 burger, any style, animal style, French, whatever. I don't care. But I love the interior. I love the restaurant, and I will eat that food just for the restaurant. And I was like, I've got some color. Let me get some. So I did the same thing there, and I finished that roll, and I sit down, and I'm like, maybe I should be in one of these. And so I set the camera up very awkwardly. Everyone's around me. I just set the phone up in front of me, and I'm like, I'll just film me reloading this camera with Portrait 100. And then later, before I didn't post it, I was just like, I don't want to just show this. I want like people to know what I'm thinking. And that's exactly what I was thinking is, why am I loading this Portrait 100? And people who know me know I'm not a color shooter. So it makes even more sense there. It's not just, oh, I'm shooting Portrait 100 over and over, getting great shots, and really it's just the musing of why do we do what we do? Why do we spend the money that we do? And I mean, I have the answers. It's the challenge. It's the interest to find out. It's like you spend your money on what you think makes life worth living. And no, I'm not going to shoot Portrait 100. I've only shot 2 or 3 rolls of it. It's not like I've shot. I know some people who not only, and I develop it myself, they get it developed and scanned. So a $20 roll becomes a $40 or $50 roll. Yeah. And
Nope.
they're shooting and I know people who are shooting 10, 20. So I didn't even think like this will speak to people. It was just, I just want to put out there what I'm experiencing and what I'm thinking. And that just blew up and people engaged with it. And they're like, well, why do you shoot that crap? You should shoot Tri-X, or, oh yeah, I relate to this entirely. And I'm like, whoa, this is very interesting. And people are watching it and they're engaging. And then I'm like, okay, so what was it? Was it me? Was it what I said? Was it the Leica? Was it the reloading? And in a way, it's kind of all of those things. And there's not a perfect formula. And this is all in context of, I'm a data engineer. I analyze data, large data sets. So I'm always thinking, I'm not just looking at it. Some people go, oh, the algorithm decides. And it's not that way. It looks for numbers of shares and all that stuff. So it's truly based on people's engagement. Do people like it? The algorithm isn't this godlike thing that's deciding this is good and that's bad. It is a little bit of, did you post at the right time for the people who might be interested to see it? So there's that. But really it is, do people relate to, are they interested? Do you have tips? I mean, some of my videos reels that don't have a lot of views, but have a lot of follows or saves are, here's how you bulk load film. And when you look at the little thing that says how many people watch this, bam, it drops off. And any Instagram influencer is going to be like, this is the sign of a failed reel. You did not do a good job. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I shared meaningful insight, and the 9% of people who stayed and then either followed me or whatever, that was useful to them. It was meaningful to them. And so I'm always going to make those reels. I have enjoyed the challenge of, I guess, the hook reel you would call. So the dust video obviously is the one everybody's familiar with. And I'm just shy of 4,000 followers as of now. I mean, just a few people. And before that reel posted, I was, I don't know, 500 or
Yeah.
less, just somewhere right around 500. Yeah. So meteoric rise that was like March 11th, I posted that, and it's the 23rd. So 12 days later. And that reel, I was thinking about it, and that whole reel was just, and there's another reel on there that I thought was more interesting, and it was me like, here's my face, I'm going to go out, hey everybody, I'm going to go out in the dust, here's my Nikon N6006, this is what I bring out in this, I've got my wild rag on to keep my, I'm going to go out there and show you what it's like, because that's what I wanted to do. I'm like, I'm all alone in this crazy thing. I'm like in a blender in my truck, and it's just like a tornado around me, and I'm like, I've got to share this. This is amazing. Not even just the photographs, just the experience and what it's like. So I shared that reel, and didn't, no one was interested. And then I just thought, I really, it's hard to like show like this. So I just put it on the dash. I have a little dash cam. It's still my phone, just filming out. And I'm like, I'm going to go out there and photograph, but I'm just going to let this run. It's not a scripted thing. I actually made some pictures. I didn't go out there and ham it up. And it was so strong. I'm like, you can see I'm almost like sideways at one point in the video, and the little particles that are getting flung by at 100 miles an hour. And you've got these telephone poles. I mean, it's like right out of Interstellar. And I was foolish to not use. I used the soundtrack on everything but that one. But and and I thought, okay, well that's interesting, but it's like, am I just going to post this? And that's when I did think a little more. I put the little text in there that says like, why would I do this? And that was a step for me, because my ideal kind of video is, and I have some older ones like this, here's a shot, here's some music, there's nothing said, it's just seen, it's sort of cinematic, I guess. And that doesn't work for Instagram in the reel form. You really need to, you need to get people thinking quickly and have them stay long enough to realize they might be interested in thinking. And how do you do that without being
Yeah.
cheesy, Because I don't like that. It's like, I hate some of these people. Oh my gosh, they do a reel where it's like, oh, do you think this guy should be in prison jail? And so you spend this time in your mind like, why did he say it like that? God, I hate this guy. I'm going to comment. And so he's getting your engagement through an inauthentic type of experience, where I'm just like, what I'm doing is crazy, and I need you to realize that, and I need to think about that on my own. Like, why am I, seriously? And even more as people comment, where's the picture? Where's the picture? And I'm just like, I don't even think there's going to be a picture. I think it's going to be just sandpaper in front of the camera. And, I shot Ultramax 400, and which I was like, there's brown. I got to get, I don't think black and white was going to work. I think I had a couple shots, finished that, put in Ultramax, and I just went out and took a bunch, but I can't even open my eyes. So I'm like, okay, this is infinity. So this is slightly closer at f8. Maybe that'll be there, just enough to kind of see, frame, and shoot. And we'll see what's there. I'll post a follow-up reel, but whatever it is, I put my talking over it to be like, why do me and us, why do we do this shit? And I think it was no pun intended, the perfect storm of that reel had reached to, because I think the people following me are pretty much all photographers. I try to look at every single one. They're coming in so fast. I totally understand these people who have 1 million followers or whatever. How do you even manage that? But I try to look at every single one, try to at least look at their work. And so, and Instagram is sort of generally photographic. So I think for the most part, people who are following me are photographers. I'm not getting, maybe there's a few weather enthusiasts, but it's a weird reel because it has some reach, because it's people like conflict, catastrophic events, mysterious scenarios, but it's like, I'm specifically photographing this, and you can't even really see. I could be holding any camera, and it doesn't really matter that it's on film. It just is, because that's how I shoot. But because some people got in, some guy made some comment, oh, and you did all that with film, and it's just going to get digitized anyway. And it's like, that's not really the point here. I do shoot on film, so it is on film, but this thing and this experience you're watching is not really about film. Or maybe it is, because I shoot film and I make these ridiculous jump through the hurdle, jump over the hurdle, jump through the hoop decisions that I would get in this situation, where a digital shooter is going to be in a helicopter. I don't, I have no idea, so they're looking for the clean shot. I put all that risk in because I don't know what I'm going to get, both in that shot and just with film generally. And so I've had I think I calculated the other day, a third of all the people who've ever followed me came from that reel, and they're still coming in.
Wow.
People are still, it's had, I think it's up to almost 300,000 views, um, tens of thousands of likes and saves. And it's sort of, I just can't figure it out. But I guess for some people, it's just kind of crazy enough. Then they're listening to what I say. Maybe the text kind of hooks them. And it's only like 19 seconds long. And it's just such a combination of like what is engaging and interesting that it brings people in. The thing I can't figure out is like, okay, you watched a interesting whatever. Why did you follow me? I would love to just poll everybody and say like, so you watched this. Did you then go to my profile and see my, like, did it just introduce you to my work? And then now you found me and felt like, oh, that's great. And some people said that. They were like, I'm glad I found you, you know, because I like that you're teaching about bulk rolling and whatever, or I really like your work that I wouldn't have found if this reel didn't get pushed to me. And so you have to think about it that way, is like that reel doesn't represent my work and me, you know, me and what I do and tell anybody any of that, but it just gets out there and brings people in to say, maybe this guy's worth looking at. And I've had to have a weird acceptance with that because, you know, that's the best performing reel. The ones that I feel more have more stuff that I'm interested in are usually less. And so to some degree you have to accept that. But you know, I'm not going to just suddenly double down and say, all right, the next storm that comes along, I'll go out and do the next crazy thing. And maybe that would get views and all of that, but it's like I'm doing this because I want to meet these people. You know, this weekend in Phoenix, the people I met there, the, you know, Zach, I got to hang out with him entirely because of that engagement that happened. And we had a discussion about that to say, you know, we have to accept that these things, when used right, are connecting us with great people. You know, I connected with Willem on there, you know, Willem Verb, and uh, you know, he was shooting some rodeo, and I reached, hey, I've got a rodeo, and we kind of chatted on there. And so um, yeah, strange. The whole rise up is strange. I don't know when that reel is going to stop bringing in followers or when it's going to stop getting views and plateau. It's still going. I mean, it's only been 11 days, so we'll see where it goes. But you know, I'll keep putting out crap reels and good reels. You know, there's the reel I put out where I'm in Phoenix. Hey, I'm in Phoenix. It sucks here. You know, that's pretty much, and that's not out there to be a perfect reel, but sometimes I have these thoughts in my head. And now that I'm realizing, I think, at least I hope, people are listening to those thoughts. And if they just need an engaging visual, you know, the other most popular reel is the one where I'm doing all the darkroom work. It's sort of these little, I take the phone and here's the spool getting extracted, or the leader getting extracted, the water getting turned on, the clock. And I asked a few people and they're like, well, it's just nice visual content that kind of underscores the process you're talking about. So it's a way to listen, but also visually engage in a way that's gonna bring you in. And I think that's what I really aim for. Is it's not professional. It's just my iPhone. I wipe the lens off to make sure it's clear, do a few shots of what I'm doing. I try to, you know, set it up if I can. If I just film it or I'm just filming me talking, you know, so be it. But I'm able to show something I'm interested in, and then I'm able to kind of talk about it. And so now I'm just writing down ideas of the things we talk about. Like I think about what my professor said to me, and I think I've been surprised with some of the engagement, how many people don't know about things that I take for granted. Like, did you know you can push your film? Like just this, and I tried to come into it way more technical, and I'm like, I think I need to back off and just tell people put your film in your camera and set it at a higher speed. And it's like, whoa, you can do that. You can do different than the. And so I'm now realizing how much you can put out there, and there's plenty of people who know that stuff, and that reel isn't for them unless they're interested in it. I love the idea of there's people who could develop at home, could develop in a bathroom sink and think, well, I don't have a dark room, so I can't develop. I can't tell how many people I've met. I don't have a dark room, so I can't develop. And there's, you know, people, is there a book out there, whatever? And so I'm like, maybe I should make a reel on the basic equipment that $30, $40, $50 will get you. so you can develop in a bathroom sink. And maybe a good number of the people who aren't developing can, which means they can save on cost, get more control, shoot more, do more film stuff. And that's what I think I think my Instagram account is I'll post my photos, whatever. I don't have anything to say. It's just they are what they are. I do try to maybe do some fun ones where it's like, hey, here's me in Phoenix, took some reels. I'll put some pictures in to kind of show my experience. And then you can see the pictures in a way that's going to grab you more. But then these other ones that are not just tips and tricks, but also like, you know what? I had a professor and he told me my work sucks. And maybe that's some people just need to hear it on the nose like that. And maybe they'll go, screw you. Who are you? My work's really good. But even then, maybe it gets them thinking, is my work challenging me? People can say your work sucks, but you got to give them something to go with from there. You can't just say your work sucks. It's like, do I just not like your work because it's different than mine, or do I think it's not engaging? Or some of the people I've talked to, I say, I feel like your work is safe and you're holding back from what you're interested in. I always start by asking, some people have asked me now, how can I improve my work? Which is humbling to think that anybody would care what I think about that. I've been shooting film for 20 years. So in some degree, I have to be like, I've been through enough failures to share something. And so I don't start with always, let's look at the work. I start with like, what are you really interested in? And a last little bit I'll kind of give you in that, because I know we're running on time. But Gary Winogrand had a very close friend named Todd Papageorge, and he's still alive, as far as I know. And he teaches at Yale, where Gary kind of had a little bit of. Gary was at Columbia. I think maybe Todd was at Columbia, and they kind of floated between these spaces. And Todd Papageorge was a photographer in his own right, but he kind of went the path of educator. But he edited a lot of Gary's work, and so was very close and familiar with him. And one day when I think I was just transitioning from high school to college, and maybe it was somewhere in college, and I started doing less of the Ansel Adams. So it was around there, around the Leica times, I'll call it. So 2013, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to send him an email, show him some work, see what he thinks. And I still got that email somewhere, but I think I was expecting like a full, oh, this one's this. And people expect that from critiques. Oh, here, and this person. And I hate those kinds of things, because a photograph, you take it, that's what it is. Don't tell me you wish the arm was there, because it's never going to be there. It's where it is. Tell me it's working, it's not. Let's maybe talk about that. But he went even further. And I took this from him is, I can't sit here and say, that one doesn't work, that one works, because that's just like my perception of it. And I can try to see it from your perspective. But what he asked me was like, what you need to work on, and at the time it was very unsatisfying, but I'm glad I heard it now, is he's like, you need to think about, what do you care about? What do you react to? What are you interested in? What does Josh care about? And that's the stuff that you photograph. And the picture problems you'll work out on the way, because you're going to decide if what you're doing is representative of the vision you have. And I think a lot of people think of vision like Ansel Adams and his visualizing is, okay, there, and that's going to be a red filter. It's not that. It's like, I'm interested in American life, and I'm sure I can pick subcategories. And once Todd kind of helped me latch on to that, I'm able to constantly keep it in there as like, am I getting what I'm interested in? Am I getting the American life that I'm interested in, all over the country? And so that, I think, is the biggest lesson that I try to pass on, that I learned from a very high level person who decided to respond to my email, this young 20 something guy, and showing him some photographs. And and that's a big thing. Start with like, why do you do this? There's a lot of people who get caught up in, oh, the vintage, the interest in film, but they have a deeper desire. And are they going after it? And that's where I try to challenge people to start. Why are you not? What's holding you back? Is it your equipment? Are you afraid? How do we get started? What's a baby step? And then people kind of figure their own problems out once you get them on the right track. They get out of the realm of safety. They're all exactly where I was. That's where we all start, from a point of, I made some pictures on a film camera. Here's some nice flowers. Here's a picture of a dog. This one's f1.4. Look how great. And we all rest on our laurels there. Who's going to push us off that mountain into the valley of despair so we can truly become good photographers. And so I'm fortunate to have had people push me. So now I try to push. And that's what I'm trying to do with it now.
You need to be the person that gives somebody crippling depression for like a month and a half until they
That's
start
right.
shooting again.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if you have a true desire, the desire will pull you through to get better. And if you're not really interested in photography as a medium to express a creative medium, and you're just sort of interested in the basic visual, which some people are, that's fine. I just like how film comes out. At least you'll know that. You'll know where you stand and what you're interested in. But I know there's a lot of people who feel like I'm not where I want to be. And if someone's reaching out and asking me, I know already that's the case. They want something they're not, maybe they respond to my work to say, how did you do that? Not how did you take this exact picture, but how did you get in there? How did you do that? Did you socialize? Did you pose them? You know, and trying to figure out that they're interested enough that there's probably some spark to be ignited. And, you know, that's, yeah, I mean, certainly I was sad after, hey, your work's shit. The stuff you've been doing for 4 or 5 years and all this technical stuff you waste all your time on and you're so tunnel vision. But you get over that and you're going to be in a new place, and it's a good place, and it's going to carry you. It's carried me for 20 years. So if anyone else can get over that hill, they're going to get there too. And anyone can do it. That's the exciting thing. It's the exciting thing about whether you're shooting a Leica MP or you're shooting, you know, a Pentax K1000 or whatever it is. You know, any of these things are possible and exciting, and you open your mind and suddenly, wow, I can do anything. I can take pictures anywhere. And like you open the gates to the photographic Garden of Eden. It's amazing.
Damn, dude, I don't think I could have asked for a better ending than little that little stretch right there was good. I'm gonna clip that for a reel.
Yeah, do it. I get when you're the mayor, you not I've certainly it's an hour and a half, so I've been quite long winded, but you reels are engaging to me because they mimic what I have to do as a mayor is people are not going to listen to a long speech. You've got a package and I call it the elevator pitch of YouTube videos, you know, or whatever my thing is. I can't sit here and talk about all the history of whatever. I've got to pitch to the public in 30 seconds or less, whatever my idea is, and structure it in a meaningful way. So now that I'm doing that once a month, I've gotten a little bit better about, I've got 10 minutes left. Okay, now the brain is just, we're in wrapping thoughts. How do we summarize? It's crazy the way the mind can adapt. And so I do accept I have that skill a little bit from my political realm.
So, are you gonna go the full influencer route? Or is that what you're gonna do? Are you gonna start making the long form YouTube videos?
Some people have said that. I think you even said, "Oh, it's you." I think actually it was Keaton from Metal Fingers said, "Now it's time for YouTube." And you know, I feel like that takes so much effort. Like I probably need a decent camera, and then I'm going to have to be, well, maybe not, uploading it. You know, I'm at the point now. Never say never. I think if I could come up with something that would be good and find a way to do it, maybe I'll get to that realm. I never thought I'd be making reels, so maybe in 5 years, I never thought I'd be making YouTube videos. But um, right now, I'm in a space where I'm so busy with life and trying to get my work actually put together. It's almost like, okay, now I've got this persona out there, but I haven't posted 1/100th of a percent of my work, and I've been trying to kind of force myself to make a book, so now I got to make the contact sheets. And so I think I need to kind of do all of that and fill out who I am as a photographer and the work that I have before I start going into that realm. But I mean, I'm at this point, I'm okay with the organic growth. Like I'm not going to boost anything. I'm not going to pay anything extra. I'll make reels as I'm interested. I'm not going to be, oh, I'm going to post every day or whatever. You know, if I have time and I do, and I have something interesting to say or something to show, I will. But I don't think I'm going to, you know, I got a full-time job. It's a good job. And I'm happy to stay as the outsider who's doing these things and not give it up and kind of live in that realm of, oh, well, maybe now I have to sell this camera to pay for that. You know, I'm very fortunate that I'm comfortable. And so if I have a little bit of time to have some influence, some social media influence, great. And if people want to follow along with that, awesome. I'm just going to put out there what I'm doing. But I don't know, maybe there's some point in the future where a YouTube video makes sense. Actually, I was chatting with a bunch of guys. I guess I'll leave it under my hat for now and see if it comes to fruition. But some of the people I've met through this growth phase were interested in my work and maybe engaging with me in some videos with them. And so who knows, maybe the first thing will be an appearance on a channel and see how I like that, or if it's something I want to spin off on my own and, go from the Beatles to Paul McCartney and the Wings and that that kind of thing. But I think I'll, just like with the reels, I'll try it out, see what the impact is. But for now, I'm just wanting to do it. I love this format. I can be in my hotel room, be who I am, and just stick the camera over there, maybe speak to it for a minute, or just stick it up and say, okay, I'm going to load this. In the airport yesterday, stuck in the airport for maintenance on the plane for 2 hours. So here comes a Tri-X loading reel. And it's got like, I don't know, 10,000 views or something like that. And it's just me loading Tri-X. And I love the creativity of, like, I've always loved, before I even knew Instagram and Reels, is, okay, the beat drop is at this moment, and that's when the thing of interest happens. And maybe I splice the reel here. So this is a 2x speed, but this is a 5x speed because no one cares about that. Even that in itself, which I guess is filmmaking, which wacky, but no, I'm not going to be directing Star Wars 8, 9, wherever they are now. I have no idea, but J.J. Abrams, but Steven Spielberg, right? Any of that kind of stuff. I get the attraction to cinema and to crafting a story. And reels are kind of amazing because you get instant and analytical feedback on how did people respond to this. And some people go the route of, I'm going to do things people want and respond to. I like it more just from how engaging is what I think I'm interested in for this, and this to people. And the 3 things I posted, only 2 of them were, but I still posted all 3 of them. I'm not going to only post things. I'll probably continue to be frustrating for some reels that people say, show the image. You're allowed to show the image. Why are you not showing the image? I don't really want to wait. That feels too, some of them I will, like I am putting out this Ektachrome one I'm talking about. And I did put out some of the shooting. I could just put out a reel that's the same stuff put together to show all the images. There's another reel. But I don't think I'm not going to put out that earlier reel, because I'm really just interested in how that camera sounds, what the space looked like. I honestly never thought in a million years people would be so upset to not get the image. But I was proven wrong. And it's like, I can't help you guys. Look, I'm busy. I don't want to hold this back. I'm just interested. I'm not sitting here creating, oh, the movie's going to come out soon. I'm not that way. So I'm going to continue doing it the way I want. People are going to get frustrated, but I'll post things when they come up and continue that way. But who knows? Maybe I'll start getting so many angry comments, just like if I don't if I don't do something right at the town, if the whole town's there yelling, like, theoretically, I don't have to do what they say. And I'm not looking to be reelected, so I'm not trying. I want to do this once, one shot, the best that I can, and say, there you go, I did what I could. I'm not one of these politicians. I want to get elected again and again and again. You get paid $200 a month, so there's not even an incentive. You've really got to want it. But to some degree, if you're a good politician and everybody hates what you do, you've either got to fully explain it if you really believe in it, or you've got to understand, like, well, if I'm doing things for the public good and the public doesn't like it, then maybe it's not for the public good. And I think it's weird for some people to think of Instagram that way. I have this unique perspective, because I would love to meet any other Instagram mayors out there. Please, any other?
You're gonna start like a support group.
Yeah, well, and actually we have that. The Platte County, Wyoming mayors have a little meeting where there's 5 of us, and we kind of meet and cuss and discuss problems and things. And there are a lot of them are older than me, and so it's just a lot of like, hey, it's all the crazy phrases. years and years and years, you can save yourself going to the doctor of diet and exercise. You find out by the time you're 35, oh yeah, all my problems were because I didn't diet and exercise. And now what I'm finding with this job is it's like it's lonely at the top, and it's true. Not that I'm the head of an executive corporation or anything like that, but it's being the one in charge and the executive. There's people who want that position that aren't there. There's people who don't want you in that position, and you have no one. You are the executive. You're at the top, and it is lonely that way. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been curious. I'm probably the youngest mayor in Wyoming, and I'm probably one of the only film photography mayors in the whole country. I would love to meet anyone else who's doing that, but I'm going to give it my one shot. I'm going to go. I ebb and flow with public opinion, and so I have this kind of interesting perspective on reels and social media because this is the same thing. You're sort of elected by the people who choose to follow you. They're voting for you with their follow. And so how do you handle being the person they elected, being the authentic person, but then also kind of bending to the things that they want that are in the same vein of, we the public think you could do this better because you're doing it for us. You are, when you put things out there. So juggling that, towing that line, I have a little bit of experience now, and so I'm kind of applying that. And yeah, there'll be some hard line reels that it's like, that's what I'm going to post. And maybe there'll be some other ones that I think are more, the public might be encouraged or interested by this. And my feeling with those is if it brings them to my work, and then we can talk and we can maybe go shoot together. Like, I love this thing I'm doing now. I don't know, I'll probably have to slow it down where I'm just bouncing to other cities and meeting up with people I've met on Instagram. When we met
Yeah,
up.
dude, that was crazy. I
And
can't believe. I was like, I don't know if this event's gonna be any good. I can't believe this dude's flying the hell out here. But all right.
it was great. I just was like, and I've been so busy. I haven't been as spontaneous as I used to be, but it was just, you know what? That weekend's free. I got some money set aside. Let's just do this. Let's just book it. Let's just go. I booked it a week. It was a week before, and I'm glad I did. And I met some great friends in San Diego, and I met some great friends in Joshua Tree, and people I met through Instagram. And so, if that's where all this lands me, is shooting with some great people, sharing some thoughts, and then putting it on Instagram to share with other people that I may not get to see. And we kind of have this vicarious digital relationship. There was a guy from Egypt who was like, hey, I love your work, whatever, I'm trying to do this. And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. This is incredible. I'm maybe never going to meet you, but people on the other side of the world. Some guy commented something on, it's pretty funny. He commented in Spanish. There's a lot of people from South America that comment and shoot film, and it's like, this is global. This thing, people need to understand how global this is, and it's interesting to see their challenges of what film stocks are available, and so some of my reels on saving money and developing and alternative point and shoots has gotten to them in a much harder way that we have to appreciate in the United States, how much access and the relatively lower cost, even if it's expensive. This guy comments in Spanish about like, what print developer should I use? I translated it, and I just put it back in Google Translate, typed it out, put it in Spanish, and sent it back to him that way. And I'm like, this is kind of fun. And I'm like, I'm sure someone's going to hammer me over this. Like, that's cultural appropriation. Or it's
To
like,
hell with them.
I'm just trying to be
No,
nice.
you're trying to help
We
somebody out. That's yeah.
yeah,
They can blow it out their ass. As long as you're trying, as long as you
yeah,
have good intentions behind what you're doing, is what matters.
yeah. It's like he could have translated, and I'm sure a lot of people do. And he commented in Spanish. So it's like, I've got Google Translate. I don't speak Spanish, but I'm just going to pop it in there, send it back to this guy. And it's like, I just I have too much of like a little kid sensibility about that stuff. Some people get so up, there's so much of like an agenda, and they're so up in arms about that. And it's just, I'm like, look, I didn't think very hard. He commented in Spanish. I have the ability to pretty well translate back what I want to say to him. It's a nice form of social transaction. Like, We are shaking hands. We're meeting each other. I'm trying to offer. I'm going out of my
Yeah.
way.
You didn't have to do that. You're trying to help.
Yep. Yep. I'm trying to help in a respectful way. There's a guy who's obsessed with camera repair who's working on my Canon 81, and I bought it from him. He's he's Japanese, and so but he speaks in English, and so I kind of struggle with, like, do I call him Mr. Tada? Do I call him Tada-san? I have this natural penchant to want to try to meet them in their culture, to say, like, I'm making an effort to try to understand where you're coming from. And I think people devalue that a little bit too much today. There's too much criticism when someone tries to meet someone where they are. We're like, we're all just trying to connect, and I've been reading this book called Influence, and it's about, like, the how are people influenced psychologically, and, like, the foundation of all influence, what influences people both in social media and physical presence, is the social contract of, if I do something for you, you feel compelled to do something for me, because we have a natural tendency to try to band together and trust each other. And that's like the basis of all influence. And so, if he goes out of his way for me, and if all I can offer back is trying to speak in his language or trying to use some of their honorifics, that is my showing of, you made an effort, I'm making an effort. I think people forget that. That's a foundational human psychological need, is to show each other that we can trust each other, and we're making an effort, even if it's messy and silly. Someone does something in a way that's like, yeah, maybe a little cringe, or I wouldn't do that, but try to take them from where they are. Maybe they were just trying.
There's a lot of good knowledge in this one. I This is a good
I
one.
hope
Dude,
so.
people are so fucking excited that you're coming on this. I've Dude, like,
Really?
insanely excited. Like, I'm in 4 or 5 different group chats, and everyone's like, "When's Chugwater coming on?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dude, what?"
I got to ask you now, should I'm struggling with this. Should I leave my handle as Chugwaterite, which is probably becoming known for that, or should it become, if it's even available, should it become the mayor?
Oh, the mayor's gone. I think the mayor's actually Mamdani in New York. I think that might be his.
Oh, yeah, probably.
But
I mean, I'm sure there's, from
yeah,
political side of Instagram, I'm sure there's plenty of people who took, and I'm sure I could come up with a little thing, but part of me is like, I'm not going to be mayor forever. At some point that will be done. And maybe I won't even live in Chugwater all the time. But maybe it's just like, that's just a name I picked. Like, we've all got that old email from the 90s or 2000s. Mine is, I probably shouldn't just say it so I don't get emails, but it's, you ever play, or Warhammer 40K, the tabletop?
yeah,
Yep. So it's one of the factions is my, with a one after it, because the original was
yeah. You
taken.
need to add one number.
And then later, as I got older, people were like, that could mean this. And I'm like, well, shit, it just means some tabletop figurines I was interested when I was a nerd, And so I figure I'm kind of like, I came up with Chugwater right. Maybe it doesn't roll off the
No, it's
tongue,
good.
but
It's so good, dude.
okay, good.
People
I'll leave it
people
there.
like it. It's already recognized. In every group chat
Cool.
I am in, and it's not like the same people in the group chat. It's like I have been added to these group chats with people all over the world, like South Korea, and everyone's like, that Chugwater guy's doing some fucking numbers right now. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I know.
So from an outside perspective, because some people have texted me, some of my friends, they're like, you're almost at 4,000 followers. Like, are people checking in on me? I mean, they're not getting a notification.
They're checking
They're
in.
they're like, what's he at today? What's he at today?
Yeah. What? I
Wow.
checked what you were at
Oh,
earlier.
wow.
All right, man. Well, I know you're busy. I'm busy. I appreciate you coming on so much. It was great meeting you in Joshua Tree. I appreciate you flying all the way out there. And thanks for doing this, man, because you're one of my favorite people to talk to. I talk to you like pretty much like once every day.
Yeah, we chat all the time. It's so fun, always kind of throwing ideas around. I mean, got to keep each other inspired, keep in contact. I love this idea that being humble as much as you can with the flood of messages and things is like, just be open and accessible. I mean, everybody's just wanting to connect. So the best that we can kind of keep each other going, especially through hard times in life. That's the best thing to do. So it was awesome meeting you and everybody else, and really glad to get these thoughts out. I always say, boy, I hope I never regret what I said, because I gave you straight up stream of consciousness, and hopefully it's a good take for some people. Just looking to inspire if I can.
Well, the good thing is it's my show, and I can leave anything in. And if they don't like it, they can fuck off and watch like one of those other podcasts.
I trust you to come up with something good. So take what you got and see what you get.